Okay, so far, the only time we've talked about sets is when we were talking about set notation in response to answering a number line, right? Okay, so there's much more to them than that. So let's start by going over this set of notes. Here we go. Okay, so a set is a collection of things. They don't have to be numbers, they can be anything. Okay, we're going to concentrate on numbers, obviously, but they can be numbers, letters, things, doesn't matter. Okay, and the one way that we have of writing sets is using set notation with these little braces, they're called. Okay, a lot of people call them the squiggle brackets, and that's fine too. As long as you write them when they're needed, then you're fine. Okay, so this is called the list method, where you just say the set M has these elements, and you list them. So parentheses or the squiggle brackets, list them all with commas, and the end squiggle bracket. Okay, you noticed I said that the elements, all of these things that they're counting are elements. Okay, so to say whether, in this case, a month is in the set or not, this means is an element of, and this means is not an element of. So basically, October is in the set M because it's right there. January is not in M because it's not in there. Okay? We won't use this notation too often because Canvas doesn't like typing it. So just be aware that it exists, and if you see it, that's what it means. Okay? So a set that has no elements is called the empty set. So that's the DNE sets. Okay? So you don't say, for example, M equals DNE. That just doesn't make sense. Okay? Coding, it would crash. It's not valid. So instead, you would write a little squiggle bracket and a squiggle bracket. Okay, in Canvas, you have to have a space in here. You can't just do squiggle squiggle. It's got to be a space in here using your space bar. Nothing else. No commas, no numbers, nothing else. Okay, so the other thing is, and I think I've written this before, that means empty set. In other words, exactly what this is. It's an empty set. This is a one symbol that means this. Okay, in your homework, you will probably still have to put DNE sometimes. Um, Technically, like I said, it doesn't fit the basically the grammar of math, but it's how the program makes it work. Okay, there are two different ways that we're going to use to combine sets together. Okay, don't panic on the graphic, I'll explain it. Okay, you have intersections and you have unions. And this is an intersection side and this is the union side. Okay, so I'm going to slide this up and do it again and show you what it means. Okay, you saw Venn diagrams on the other part, so let me explain what that is. Okay, so this is set A, and my circles aren't as good as graphics, but that's okay. And we're going to intersect two sets. Okay, so they're going to overlap, basically. Where they overlap is called the intersection. Okay, so where they intersect, the actual overlap. Okay, that is the intersection. We write it as, let me label this. This is A circle and this is the B circle. So it's written as A overlapping with B. Why they use that symbol, I don't know. Just know that that's what it means. It's the intersection symbol. Okay, it looks kind of like an N, but it isn't an N. Don't draw that little line. Okay, but it looks like an N for intersection. I don't know. That's how I remember it. And before I finish that side of the chart, I'm going to do the other side. Okay, so hopefully I can get the circles basically the same because this is set A again and this is set B again. Okay, close enough. All right, this time it's a little different. So like if this is A and this is B, yeah, let's pretend I can shade. Okay, the same thing happened before, for example, and this middle part right here turned purple. Because you overlap pink and blue, you're going to get purple. Okay, but over here, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to say anything that is colored becomes the union of the two. Okay, so anything with color. In other words, it's going to be all of this whole thing, right? Okay, this is just this little tiny part in the middle. This is all of it, including that little tiny part in the middle. Okay, another way you hear it is everything. So overlap and everything is what you'll hear me say the most. Okay, and you write it as A union B. You don't usually say it like that. You never usually say A union B. You look at the entire thing and you will say the union of A and B or the intersection of A and B. But that's how you write it. Okay? All right, on the other, or on your graph, the one you're looking at while I'm doing this, I'm doing them a little out of order, but that's okay. When you see a problem later on, we're going to use different words. Okay, this is an and problem, and this is an or problem. So if I were to say, combine A and B, find the intersection of A and B, you could say, depending on the situation, it is this, and then you work it out. Finding the union of A and B, it's this or this, and then you work it out. Okay? This part with the little symbol, that's how you write the answer once you've finished it. Okay, sorry for that little jiggle. Um, oh, maybe there wasn't one. Who knows? Okay, one other word you're going to see for each of these, and this is how you'll see it. I skipped forward on your notes a little bit, but so these are examples of disjunctions, and then you see the or in the problem, and you see the little u in part of the answer. Okay, so let's go back and get up to this point. Okay, we will use everything on here, so it does need to make sense. If you have questions, please ask me in person, okay? All right, here we go. So, my side, we are going to find it is the examples. We're going to find the intersection here and the union here. Okay, so where do these two, A and B, intersect? So it's like this was A, this was B. What turns them purple? Where do they overlap? Which ones do they have in common? Okay, so numbers they have in common basically means the overlap. Okay, so you see a 2 in both, you see a 5 in both, and you see a 7 in both. So those are the three that they have in common. And you write it as A intersect symbol B. So in other words, the intersection of A and B is these three elements in set notation. Okay, at the bottom of this part we have, or the next part, sorry, we have the union of A and B. And the union is everything in both. Okay, so we look up at the original, and if you notice, this is in order. They don't have to be. However, it's really nice if they would be, right? Okay. So trying to get the lowest one, then the next, and then the next, and then the next, and next, and next, sometimes is kind of hard. Okay. Notice also that we didn't write 2 twice. We didn't write 7 or 5 twice. Okay. Because 2 is an element and it would have been inside those circles, right? Let me write that for you so you can see it. This is basically what the Venn diagram would look like. So there is only 1, 2, but it's in this circle and this circle, so you only write it once, if that makes sense. Okay, if you have it duplicated, it's okay, but it's not okay. Okay, just get them all. If you happen to repeat one, I'm not going to mark it wrong. Okay, all right, so go ahead and try yours. See what you can do. And yours is a little bit longer because it has more elements, but it's still the same process. Okay, so here we go. We want the intersection of C and D. In other words, which elements do they have in common? I see a 4, 8, 9, 10, and a 14. Did I miss any? I don't think so. Okay, so that is going to be 4, 8, 9, 10, 14. Okay, let's say this is what you did. You're doing 4, 8, 9, 14. Oh, shoot, I forgot 10. Just tuck it at the end. I don't care. Okay? All right, now down on the intersection of all of them. So everything in both of them. Do your best to get them in order, but sometimes, and especially while I'm talking, you make some mistakes. Okay, so 9, 10, then it looks like 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Yeah, once we got to 7, it was a lot better because it was everything. Up here, they skipped around a little bit, right? So 1, 2, we skipped 3, 4, 5, skip 6, 7, and then everything else. Okay? You will have some like that, so be aware that you need to know the difference between these two symbols. Okay, last one here, your number 2. Okay, not quite as long, but a little different. Okay, so where do E and F overlap? What's the intersection of both of them? And you look through, this is all the evens, this is all the odds. There is no overlap. So how do you write that? You've got 2 ways. Okay, you could write empty set. And remember, you're leaving a space in here, just a single space in Canvas. Or you're writing empty set like that. Okay, to find the entire union, you're just writing all of the numbers between 2 and 13, odds and evens, because you're just putting both sets together. You want everything in both, and you want to keep them in order if you possibly can. Okay? Okay, hopefully this little chart's making more sense as we go. The numbers, the set of number elements, that's the easier version for some people, and it's harder for other people because it's a long set of numbers. We're going to be using inequalities instead. Okay, so let's see what this looks like with those. Okay, you see this in your notes, and it might not be in color, and I'm going to change the colors anyway to match ours. So I'm going to cover that one up and zoom in. Okay, there we go. All right. Most of the time you're going to have to draw your own number line, so let's just get used to doing that. And all I'm going to require that you put on the number line are the numbers that you need. Okay? So this is incorrect. Don't write this down anywhere. You don't put 3 here because it's here, and you put the 1 here because it's here, because these are backwards. Number lines, the smallest one has to be over here, and you get bigger as you go across. Okay, so you only need 2 numbers, but you have to make them fit correctly. So the -1 is here, and the 3 is here. Okay, now I've told you before that the space above your number line cannot be used for your answer. The space above your number line is where you show your work to figure out what the actual answer is for these. Okay, right now it's going to be pretty simple, so it's going to seem redundant, but it is absolutely necessary that you use the top for your space, or the top space for your work. Okay, so I'm going to do this first one. Actually, let me change the thickness a little bit. There we go. I'm going to do that one in pink, and we'll do this one in blue, just like we did before. Okay? All right, so the pink one, right here, it doesn't have an equal to line, so that's going to be an open circle at 3, right? So open circle at 3. This is my scratch work. It's not my answer yet. Okay? And variables first, so I can use the arrow to figure out which way it points. It's pointing to the right, so my line is going to go to the right. Since it's just scratch work, I don't worry about the arrows. I just get the scratch work in. Okay, blue part. It is a closed circle at -1, and because the variable's first, the arrow points to the left. Okay, so we're going to do a closed circle going to the left. Okay, and notice I did the top line was pink and the next line was blue. Okay, I like to do that because otherwise it gets confusing for me later with more complicated problems. So I will always do levels, 2 layers, if you will, of work, one for each side. Okay, so now you go to the word. This is a disjunction, it's an or. I want everything in both. You look at that little chart, and that's what you're looking for. I want all of this, and I want all of this. So basically, I'm going to take everything that has color, all of this one and all of this one, and put it down on my graph. Okay? So I want a closed circle here, an open circle here. This one's going to go out, and this one's going to go out. Yeah, that's pretty messy. Okay? Remember, though, don't do squiggles. You got to do actual lines. Okay, so that gray part is the graph of the interval notation, or graph. Now I need the interval notation. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry. Okay, remember the interval notation always goes like from the left, from where you're reading. This first part has a negative infinity because it points to the left, and then -1. It's closed at -1, open at infinity. Okay, so we're coming across. We've covered this part. Now we have a blank. Okay, so that's why it stops here. And now we're going to pick it up over here because none of this counts. This does. So now we have an open circle at 3, and it continues to positive infinity. And there we go, almost. Remember when I said we have the U and the N symbol as part of our answer? You need that. You need to tell people how you're combining these two parts together, and it's a union because it's an or. Unions and ors, when it's set up in the directions, disjunctions are all the same. This goes in your problem, this goes in your answer. Okay, try yours. See what you can do. Okay, I've got my number line. This time the numbers are in order. 0's on the left and 4's on the right. Okay, so at 0, it's going to be a closed circle because of this line, right? Points to the left, so I'm going to draw to the left. 4 is an open circle, points to the right, so I draw to the right. It's an or, so it's everything in both, which means you're going to shade all of it. So closed circle this way, open circle this way. Okay, notice my open and closed circles are quite a bit bigger than the number lines. That's just so you can read them. Okay, all right, so interval notation is negative infinity to 0, open at infinity, closed at 0, then your little union symbol, and open at 4 to infinity, and open at infinity. Okay, hopefully you got those. I think these are fun, so I know I'm weird. Okay, now they get a little bit more technical. So why? If you notice, the inequality signs are both pointing the same direction. Okay, so here's 2, here's 5. This is where your work is incredibly important. Okay, so I'm going to do at 2, it's open and it goes to the right. At 5, it's also open and goes to the right. Okay, we are looking for an or. We want all of both. We want everything. Okay, so basically what's happening is I want all of this line, pretend it's the same, and all of this line. Okay, how do I draw that in one color? You can't put all of the, just drop them both on and that's your answer. Okay, right here at 5, is it open or not? If you draw an open circle, it doesn't count the pink inside. Okay, the pink fills in the circle, basically. Okay, so what your graph really looks like, let me put those back where they were, is this. We have an open circle and it goes all the way across, and that's it. If you put an open circle right here, it's technically incorrect. It is wrong. The computer will mark it wrong. You only get circles on your endpoints. If you put circles in the middle of your line, it is incorrect. Okay? It's assumed that you start at 2 and everything after it is your answer. Okay? Writing that in set notation, or try it again, interval notation, you have open at 2 and to infinity. And that's it, because 5 and on is already included. Okay? Those are the ones that get people confused. So if you have questions, please, please, please ask. Okay, now let's move to conjunctions. All right, and again, I'm going to cover up their work and do it again with our colors and my explanation. Okay, and zooming in, here we go. Okay, notice they called it a conjunction up at the top, right? It's a conjunction, and therefore it has an and. Okay, here we go. Number line first, and leave space for your work. 3 is first, 6 is second. Okay, so I'm going to do my scratch work up top. So this one is open at 3 and it goes to the right. This side is closed at 6 and it goes to the left. Once again, we know open and closed because closed is the equal to line. Open doesn't have it. Okay? All right, now we want and. We want We want where they overlap. Okay, so where do they overlap? Where does the pink and the blue overlap? It's right in there, right? Because if you're dropping them down onto the answer line, which I'm not going to do, I'm just going to drop them onto each other, basically. So the pink one I'm going to drop right on top of the blue one. And right in here is where they overlap, right? That is my purple part, if you will. Okay, so it starts at an open circle and it ends on that circle. Okay, these circles actually represent a single individual number. So like 3, exactly. It's not 3.1, it's not 3.000000001, it's not 2.9999999, it is 3. Okay? You have to make the circle big enough that people can read it. So it's going to be bigger than a single pixel, basically. Okay? But it doesn't include 3. It can't because open circle doesn't include anything inside it, so it's not overlapping. But now I do need to shade that middle part. Okay, so that's where it turned purple. So that's my answer as a number line. Okay, now I need my answer in interval notation, and we're going to start with 3 because it's first, reading from left to right, and we're going to end on 6. It's open at 3 and closed on 6. Okay, so go ahead and try yours. Maybe. There we go. All right, I've got the number line drawn. Here we go. So at 10, it's going to be a closed circle going to the left. And at 7, it's an open circle going to the right. Where do they overlap? Right in between here, right? So your answer becomes open here, closed here, and everything in between. So your interval notation becomes open at 7, closed at 10. All right, hopefully those two are making sense to you. Let's do the next one. Or actually two. Okay, so these are a little bit different. Let's take a look at it. Okay, so there we go. The top one. Let me get my number line in there. So number line, -1, positive, I'm not going to go quite so far over. There we go, +4. And open at 1, -1, sorry, to the left. And 4 is open and to the right. Now, where do they overlap? They don't, right? Okay, so there is no solution if it says graph and give interval notation. Okay, I can't graph it. Your graph is an empty line. So that is the graph. If you put anything on it, it will be wrong. Okay, don't even put open circles, nothing on it. Okay, and then the answer, you still have to give something for interval notation. Okay, so no solution. You could write out no solution. You could write no answer, does not exist, something. You need to give an answer. If you just leave everything blank, we think you just don't know how to do it. Okay? All right, bottom one. Number line. This time -4 comes first, -1 comes second. Okay, at -4, it's closed circle to the right. At 1, it is an open circle and to the right. And where do these two overlap? Okay, just right here, right? Okay, so that's what we're going to graph. So it'll be an open circle and going this way. It cannot equal -1 because of right here. So that's why it has to stay an open circle. Okay, open at -1, continues to infinity, and it's also open. Okay, there is one other type that is not included in your notes. So let me give you one last example here. Let's say I have x is less than 4 or x is greater than -1. Let's even make it less than or equal to, just to make it different, okay? So here's our number 9 with a -1 and a 4. Let's get our work in there. So at 4, it's a closed circle going to the left. And at -1, it's an open circle and going to the right. Okay, this one, however, is an or statement. Okay, I want everything in both. Okay, because I want everything in both, I'm going to drop that pink one down on top of the blue one. And can you see that the entire number line is going to be used? This is everything, not overlap. So we don't want just this part because that word is different. Because this is an or statement, it's a disjunction, which means everything, everything that's in color, not just the purple part, but everything. So if I were to turn this black and white, you wouldn't see the pink and the blue. So it would just be where is the graph covered? And that would look like the entire thing. Okay? Even right here, because underneath that open circle, there is a pink line. So that fills in -1. Okay? So set notation would look like -infinity to +infinity. It's the entire line. Okay? All right, that gives you enough now that you should be able to do your homework for that section, and we'll come back for the next part in the next section, next video.